I do believe we are live on the air now.
Excellent.
Gentlemen, in 1982, amongst a market full of Ataris and Apple IIs, a small company called Moss Technology released, can you guess it? The Commodore 64. That's right. 35 years later, in 2017, PHP Ugly records episode 64, and we will more than likely talk about Apple. Coincidence? I think not. Thomas Rideout, John Congdon,
I am
PHP Ugly, how are you guys doing?
I am no longer going to participate in these intros. You take way too much pleasure in it.
You can't participate in it.
That's true.
How do you come up with that kind of stuff?
It's just Wikipedia. I see where Wikipedia takes me. So, gentlemen, what was your first computer? Speaking of the Commodore 64,
Apple Cocoa Color 3. Apple,
really?
No, Tandy Cocoa Color.
I say that's the Tandy. That was mine too. But the TRS-80 Cocoa, whatever it was, 64, I think it was just the Cocoa, and then they came out with the Cocoa 128K, which had the really small fonts that you could barely read on a television screen. Yeah. What about you, Thomas? What was yours?
I had an 8088.
What?
An 8088.
8080. I don't know what that was. What is that?
That's an old IBM clone.
Mm.
And
right.
yeah, really ancient. It was on one of those green phosphorescent screens that used dangerous levels of lead to filter the light before it hit your eyes and things like that.
So you would appreciate this then, John. I'm going to have to dig it up. I actually have a Tandy Cocoa in my garage. I found it at a swap meet. Yeah. Found it at a swap meet once and picked it up. I always envisioned having one of these offices that was a garage and having a bunch of old systems on a shelf somewhere, just for historical purposes.
And now it's just you being old in a room.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I always wanted to do that too. Just have display all my old stuff, and
yeah.
And then I ended up moving and getting rid of a lot of it. So
I managed to hold on. I was just in my garage the other day. I still have some of the old COBOL printouts in applications that I wrote back in college. It's done on the old green and white dot matrix printer. So the paper was long, green and white stripe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's something that I miss. Is it used to be when you bought a printer, you got a copy of Banner Maker. Do you guys remember that software?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
I do. I wasted so much paper with that.
Oh yeah. No, as a kid, I remember having banners for every event possible in my home. It had, you would put the text up and it had a frame, and you just had a half an hour of the computer room going me. If my mom came home and heard that sound, she'd say, "Is it somebody's birthday?"
Or you'd be able to print out the cards, like the birthday cards and stuff, and have to fold the paper right. Like it would print it out, in the four thing. Oh man, that was the day. So check it out. People aren't going to be able to appreciate this on the audio podcast, but for our visual viewers, which we haven't done right now, I have special effects. Watch. Now this is Happy Eric. This is Angry Eric.
Oh jeez.
Happy Eric, Angry Eric, Hulk Eric.
How much does those Christmas lights cost you?
He's got a colored light shining on him.
Yeah. From Crayola Crown has a light bulb out that you can change the color It's not one of these smart ones. It doesn't hook up to an app. It's very simple. Very simple. It's not hooked up to any internet or anything like.
Good.
But yeah, very simple. Bunch of buttons here, and I love it. I sit here. So that's how I spend my weekend.
I ended up adding some smart light bulbs to my house recently.
So I do have 2 smart light bulbs, and I love them. I think the family has grown to appreciate them as well. Which ones did you go with?
I went with the Philips Hue bulbs.
Yep, I am a Philips Hue
hold
fan
on.
as well.
Hey, step 1, don't admit to having IoT devices in your house. Step 2, don't give out the model number.
Meh,
oh
whatever.
My goodness, too early. Too early. Doom and gloom, boy. Relax.
I'm all about the IoT anymore. I don't care if it's hackable.
I'll never do it.
Yeah.
Unless someone wants to buy me a Juicero.
What's a Juicero?
It's a $600 bench vise that makes juice.
What? Why would that be your one exception?
Because it's so dumb. It's being called the definitive symbol of the arrogance of Silicon Valley.
Okay.
I want one just for entertainment purposes, just to say I have this thing.
That's an
that
expensive
squeezes
entertainment.
Yeah,
Man.
well, if you gave it to me, I'd never buy one.
I ended up getting it because
Go ahead, John.
I was just gonna say I ended up getting it because my 3-year-old, can't believe he's gonna be 3 on Sunday. He's now afraid of things. Like he sees mannequins in his room, so he's always waking up like, "Daddy, I saw something scary." So we started leaving his light on for him, and it's not the old, what is it, incandescent, where it was like super hot, but it's the fluorescent, so it still got warm. I was putting a really lightweight blanket on top of it to dim it down a little bit, and it was like a little concerned, not too concerned, but you wake up, the blanket was warm. So I went with LED bulbs, and now I can have it up to like 40-50% to read his books to him at night, let him fall asleep, and then without him seeing it, be able to turn it down to like 10%, make it really dim.
That's tricky.
So
you should remove the scarecrows and mannequins from his room, though.
But it's just a mannequin. It's just a mannequin head. It's okay.
Such a whip.
It's just a mannequin head. It's okay. Looking at him
upside down.
I'm already out of scotch. God damn, we're 11 minutes in, and I've already gone through all my scotch. You guys suck.
I didn't do it.
It's fine. I got my Starbucks here. I'll sober up by the end of the show.
Uh-oh.
Whatever.
That's when it gets
How
dark.
was everybody's week?
Or we can be done with the show in like 20 minutes.
That would work.
My week was interesting.
Why was this?
Still on the project from hell, the JS project that never wants to get out the door.
Okay.
And generally just following the news and keeping quietly to myself and chuckling. And as you guys know, we got yelled at on Twitter, I guess.
Are you jumping into news already?
And that's not news. That was part of my week. That we talked offline for quite a bit about that one.
Yeah, whatever. 64 seconds is apparently how long it takes me to offend people. Hey, nobody set the Trello board up. We can't move things around. Good job, guys.
I moved stuff around.
What? I'm not.
Are you on someone else's Trello board?
No, but there's not a show for 64 on here.
Oh yeah, there isn't.
Yeah, you want to do that real quick? No, take your time. You're editing this.
Honestly, couldn't tell you how.
Fucking
I'm on it. Jeez.
You got it? All right.
Please, yeah.
Because otherwise, I'd have to put my glasses back on, and I don't want to look like an old man.
What is it? The 8th. I'll do it live.
Live.
All right. It's there.
Yeah, we had unhappy people with me. It's me again. It's always me.
I don't think it was. I think it was me.
No, it was me.
No, it was all of us. It was us praising somebody and then taking it too far.
No, I don't think so. I think it was me. Nobody took it too far, and I don't think we took it too far. Period. We don't have to get into the minutiae of it. Or whether or not we feel like people overreacted. We don't have to make those opinions or those statements. It's fine. No, I think it's a non-event to me. I did discover some things about some people who I had one opinion of and now have a different opinion of. But besides that, it's pretty much a non-event. You know what? If that offended you, you don't fucking listen to the show enough, because there's so many worse things.
Wow.
Yep.
Is that really what we're taking that?
No, dude. Well, I mean, seriously. Really?
Well, if you don't understand that the joke I was making about Eric being a 7-foot tall ogre being a somewhat intimidating thing at conferences, then maybe you should understand that a little bit better before making a comment about that specific topic. Because he is a beast of a man.
That's not what people are offended about.
They were offended about the fact that I said I thought there was chemistry or some. Yeah, I think that's what it boiled down to. That was
no chemistry. There was no chemistry. Yes,
that was the phrase I heard mentioned the most. Now, I have said in the past, for the record, I have flirted with other people. I think I joked about going out to dinner with Jacob Bennett when he was on the show, and we're both married men, and I know John and I are constantly ribbing each other. So, regardless, like I said, non-event, not going to change anything. I mean, whatever.
And like we said repeatedly last week, this isn't a news podcast. This is us chatting about the work we do and what the news has contained. We're not. This is our opinions.
Yep,
and
exactly.
We're active community members. We're active in engaging women in STEM and STEAM, and we're active in as many ways. Yeah. I mean, there's a little nepotism with the most recent hire, but
okay, all right, we'll go with. Okay, the gloves are coming off. I can see that. I can see where this is going. Yes, this is true. I leveraged my status as a CTO to get my daughter a position.
A position which took my email address away from me. She took the last GigaDev email account. You guys were hoping I wouldn't put 2 and 2 together, but I did.
I messaged you. I told you it was happening.
No, I got that message right after I got the message from my auto email checker that said I had been removed from the group.
So we're cheapskates. We happen to have a free Google account with 10 free email inbox or free boxes, and as long as we can, we're going to milk that. I don't know how much longer that's going to be. But
Thomas was occupying slot 10, so yes,
my slot position had changed from like 4 to 10.
That's true.
You had the opportunity, if I recall, to occupy position number 1.
Called you out.
No, I know. I discovered that the day after I accepted a different opportunity.
So obviously my daughter and I had some very lengthy conversations about our relationship and work and professionalism and this and that. And she
was telling you what to do?
She participated today in Slack, specifically the PHP Ugly channel, and somebody had mentioned the fact that she was my daughter, And she she so innocently looked at me and was like, "Dad, I think they know." It was like, really? Like, oh my goodness.
So yeah, now you've got Emily working for Diego.
Milo the coder.
Yeah, what's she doing?
Honestly, we're just trying to get her some work experience. She had expressed some interest in coding, so I thought we'd give her some insight on what the business was really like and see how things function day to day. We're looking to kind of leverage her. Yeah, leverage her a lot with our community outreach division. The user groups we participate in, handling social media, that sort of thing. So,
nice. Is she going to take over the subreddit?
Well, she took over your slot as organizer. So, we removed you as an organizer of the user groups and put her in there.
Got that. Very, very, very slick. I would have gotten an email. I would have gotten an email about it, but someone ruined my email account.
Oh man, so easily replaced, Thomas. Next week she'll be taking it.
Eric brought the idea up to me about using her, and I mean we've talked about it for a long time, and all of a sudden now we have like a list of just a ton of things that she can be helping us with. Mm-hmm. So really excited about that.
And I'm ecstatic about it. I really am looking forward to her just kind of getting some work experience under her belt and seeing how things actually get done. So
now the question is, did it cause any friction with Alyssa?
Oh no, she's gainfully employed. So yeah, she's happy. She's over at Target. So. No, I don't think so. I don't think it's an issue at all.
Cool. That's a good thing.
Oh, and they're twins. They share a cortex. They experience the same thing at the same time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's how it works. You know what's weird is today, the high school my daughters went to today had their graduation for this year's class. So now my daughters are a year removed from high school. Like a whole nother class has graduated behind them.
So did you tell them that the time for slacking off is over then? They've had their year on the road?
That's pretty much, yeah.
Although he's been trying to tell them that for a year now.
Trying to tell my kids that.
Oh, man. John, what have you been doing? Anything fun?
Breaking things, yeah.
IoT light bulbs.
I'm liking my IoT stuff.
I am professionally getting a little frustrated, and I'll tell you why in a second.
But you should let John go first, since you asked him what he's been up to.
I thought he takes too long. I try to be patient with the guy. Go ahead, Tom. John. Go, John.
No,
John, go.
Nothing. I want to know. I know where you're going, and I want to hear what you're going to say, and then I'm going to jump all over it and tell you how you're wrong.
So I'm feeling professionally a little frustrated. If you take a look at my GitHub, I have this huge block now of gray dots with no green, very little green in it at all.
So you're wrong. Those are really green. You just can't see properly. You need your glasses.
My development time has been so reduced. Let me change it here. Maybe this will help it turn it to green. Nope, they're still gray. See, I'll tell you. Yeah, I have done so little coding, like PHP coding. I'm just kind of getting frustrated because every time I think I'm going to get back to doing some coding, I get pulled in another direction, and oh man, I'm frustrated. I'll tell you,
it's hard.
But
when you're running the running the business at the same time. You got all sorts of you're doing some fun stuff like working with CouchDB and that kind of stuff. It's just not coding yet.
That has been fun. That is true. Yeah, I'm real happy with the progress we're making on CouchDB and how we're looking to use it. So yeah, that's a good point. That's valid. I'll give you that one. But we have next week coming up at the SDPHP meetup, our local user group meetup for PHP. We're doing lightning talks on frameworks. Now, there's a couple significant pieces of this. First thing, the first time I ever presented for SDPHP was a lightning talk on frameworks. And the lightning talk on framework I presented for was Cake PHP, which is the one I'm going to do next week. So I was a huge Cake PHP person back in the day. Yeah. And I mean, to me, it was the framework. There was no other like it. I had left PHP. I had moved to Ruby and Rails. I had learned the Rails framework and how they did things, and then found myself drifting back to PHP. When I found myself drifting back to PHP, I'm like, I've got to find a framework that's like Ruby and Rails. And I had done a bunch of research, and at the time, Cake PHP was that framework. I dove into Cake PHP, and it just clicked. And I remember thinking to myself, that's it. I'm never, ever going to code PHP any other way but through Cake. And that held true for a couple of years. Did my first presentation for SDPHP, lightning talk on Cake PHP, built a blog in 15 minutes. Everybody was blown away. And at the end of that meetup, a good friend of ours came up to me, William, came up to me and said, that was really cool. I think you would like Laravel. I'm like, Laravel? I'd never heard of Laravel.
Oh, he's like, yeah. And that's how it begins.
He's like, it's not that popular of a framework. He's like, but do me a favor. Don't look for it. Don't check it out. Don't look into it. He's about to release Laravel 4. He's like, don't even look at Laravel 3 right now. Just wait for Laravel 4 to come out. I'm like, I don't think I'm even going to look at Laravel 3 to be honest, or 4 to be honest with you. I don't see any reason for me to ever leave Cake. I'm like, there's just no reason for me to leave Cake PHP. Now, Cake PHP at the time was before Composer, before Composer. That was the big thing. So then, obviously, I get introduced to Laravel. At the same time, get introduced to Composer install, and everything changes for me. So then I spend years with Laravel. And when we decided to do these lightning talks, I basically said, okay, nobody can talk about Laravel because like everybody in our company could easily talk about Laravel. So I'm like,
that's all we do.
Right. Nobody can talk about Laravel. Everybody has to talk about another framework. And so we've got a guy talking about Yi, Frank, one of our developers talking about Yi, great guy. Another one of our developers is talking about Falcon, which is really a framework that had interested me in the past. I'm talking about Cake. Marcus, our organizer of the Laravel meetup, he's the one that's going to present on Laravel. So I'm like, Cake, this is going to be so simple. I'm basically going to do the same presentation. I'm going to build a blog in 15 minutes. It's going to be awesome. Cake now has Composer, so it's got to be that much better. Man, I'm telling you, fucking Laravel has ruined me. Absolutely ruined me. Man, I did a Composer install for Cake, and I'm like looking at the routes. I'm like, what the hell is all this garbage? What's going on here? Wait, what? And it took a while to look at it to figure it all out, but it just looked messy, as opposed to like the nice clean route files of a Laravel application and nice clean controllers and models. And I mean, I used to love Cake. Everything about it made sense to me. And now I look at it, not that much has really changed. It's just I've changed. And like now I look at it, I'm like, oh, this doesn't quite feel right. Laravel, it's ruined me. Absolutely ruined me.
And yet you're still going to do a presentation on cake and convince everybody not to use it.
Now you guys,
I'm going to do this
use a bunch of my tricks for routes, though, don't you? You guys use my tricks for routes, which is to have the route file point to a routes directory.
No. I don't. I don't think we use it on any of our apps. I do a lot of grouping. I use a lot of route groups.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah, but you were one of the first ones I saw that did that, and now obviously in Laravel 5 since what 5.3. Yeah, they started breaking out at least the API and web routes and all that. But I pretty much still keep all my. Not that yours didn't make sense. I thought it was a good solution, and I've never really had that many routes where I felt overwhelmed keeping them in one file. I
have hundreds now.
I know. I remember I've worked on a project with you in the past. Yeah, I remember seeing all those routes.
So your routes file, does it load all of the routes in that directory, or how does that work?
It copies the code from the config file loading. So it just does a fetch on the directory and reads all the PHP files and includes them.
There's no I/O performance hit by doing that if you have to do it every single time?
No, because routes gets cached, including the results of routes. So the routes file includes an anonymous function that does the fetch of the file system. So that value gets cached, and until the routes file gets hit again, then there's no hit. It's just cached in memory. On production. On our testing stuff, that we don't use route caching.
Why not?
Because we're testing our routes.
Oh, I'm sorry. On testing, you don't use caching. But production, you do. I'm sorry. Yeah, makes sense. Yep.
So have you guys been following the latest WWDC this week?
Oh boy, I haven't been following it. I've just been catching the bits and pieces of announcements, and Apple has lost its goddamn mind.
I mean, I continue to be unsurprised by the company. Like, I have not. Yeah, underwhelmed. Perfect word. I have not heard an announcement out of them for years where I said, "Holy crap!" You know, they're forging forward. You know, new things. Blah blah blah. No, everything they do now is catch-up mode. It's okay. Well, we think, you know, clearly there's a market for this, so we're gonna create a smart speaker. You know, it's not really an assistant, more of a speaker that has some intelligence to it, because, you know, clearly you guys want this, so here, we'll do one. And it's like, holy crap, guys, come on. And the reason people looked at you is because you thought different. That was your slogan, think differently. You know, it's like, it's been so long since I've been wowed by them.
Well, they've announced the iMac Pro.
Mm-hmm.
The iMac Pro, right?
Which is the worst product I've seen from them in a year. I was going to say longer, but then I remembered the laptop.
Yeah, one of the tech bloggers I follow is calling it a trap.
Oh, like, it's 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's sexy in the sense of some of the specs it has, but once you get it, you can't upgrade it, and it's friggin' expensive.
You can upgrade it, but not yourself.
Yeah.
No.
There's a factory upgrade system.
You can upgrade it when you buy it.
I was an iMac user for a while. I thought that they were such a great solution, you know, that all-in-one solution. But man, I had so many problems with, like, one thing with your iMac, like a couple pixels go out and your whole computer now is like not 100%, you know? It's
And don't forget that
I don't like the whole.
It was a good all-in-one solution that was cheap.
Yeah, that's
Now,
true.
The
when
base
you
model
take
of
an
this one is $5,000.
Yeah, $5,000, and that's on an
Hold on,
Intel.
wait. The base model is $5,000.
Base model is $5,000.
That's ridiculous.
You're starting with eight cores, and then you can upgrade it to 10 or what is it, 18 cores.
Okay, and for reference point, 8 cores right now costs you $150.
It's just
So
insane.
The whole of this $5,000 price is in the 5K monitor.
Which again, that's the worst place to spend your money on, because buy yourself a small little Mac Mini and a nice 5K monitor.
Right.
God, the company is just disappointing. And if I'm not mistaken, the laptops didn't really get a bump, right? They no more additional RAM.
No bump on this one.
No additional RAM. I thought they came out with a couple new models. Couple of cheaper ones, but nothing worth talking about.
One of the interesting things is that the iMac Pro is going to support up to the 18-core Intel processors. So if a $5,000 entry fee isn't enough for you, you can very quickly bump that up to $15,000 just by changing the CPU.
And going up to 128 gigs of RAM and
4 terabyte SSD, Radeon Vega graphics chip, which, I mean, God, that's the highest end on the market. They're pushing all these highest end components, but these highest end components, you're looking at a system that's going to be $25,000. And then you've got $25,000 invested in a screen. So once your webcam goes out, bad news, buddy. You're gonna have to take that down to the Apple Store.
Yeah. every one of my iMacs, the disc, like it had the disc on the side. This is when they got disc. Had the disc they put on the side. Every one of them. Yeah, every one of them went bad. But that's what I'm saying. It's like one component goes bad, and your computer is crippled. I mean, your entire workstation is crippled. Man, that's just amazing.
And if you look at the competition in the sector, Microsoft unveiling that Pro Slate system, that 40-inch screen that was on a bezel, and that's a nice all-in-one system, roughly the same price, except that it has multi-touch support on the screen, plus support for these devices like scrollers and wheels that you can use for your video editing. And to me, it's just bizarre that they're dumping so much power into something that can't even be user serviced.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like I said, it's been so long since they've done anything that's been any level of impressive. I don't know. I say that, and of course I have an Apple laptop, I have an Apple desktop, and I still feel like it's a solid OS, and they've lost their direction on the hardware for computers. Like they've been so focused on mobile and iPhones and tablets that they've just completely lost their way anywhere on any other device.
And I still don't even like the iPhone or the iPads. I mean, a simple example, going back to my IoT solution, I have the Samsung Smart Things, and on the Android, I can set up a widget so I have quick access to a lot of settings. So I can, just unlock my phone and push a button, arm the alarm, or change the lights or whatever I want to do. On the iPhone, it's much more of a pain in the ass having to go into the app and get to the right screen and make changes.
Yeah. And another example for me, and again, I do kind of like my iPad, but that's the closest thing I have to an iOS device. And using a password manager, like with my Android device, the password manager integrates with the login screens. Like if I hit a login screen, it's smart enough to know to open up LastPass, and it has a little overlay to it. With my iOS device, I have to exit out of the application, or not exit, but switch out of the application over to LastPass, open up LastPass, log into LastPass, find the login I need, copy, switch back to the application, paste, go back, get the username, get the password, and come back and paste. Such a pain. I just don't understand. I don't understand why that's acceptable for iOS people. Like as elite as they are, as you know, always having the best of the best. Why that's acceptable? Authy is another perfect example. I don't have an iPhone. I have an iPad. I use my iPad sort of frequently, but there's no Authy app for the iPhone. To use Authy, you need to use the for the iPad. To use Authy, you need to use the iPhone version. So it's not orientated for the iPad. So if you have your iPad in landscape mode, it doesn't change. It's like you're looking at the application sideways. And I'm like, it just blows my mind. It's like, are you really, as much crap as they give the Android ecosystem for all the devices that they have to support and all the different screen resolutions they have to support, I have never experienced the issues, the user interface issues I have on Android that I experience with iOS. And it's just it's an unpleasant experience for me. I can't fathom why they accept that.
Speaking of Authy, they must listen to our show.
I'm sure they do. Why wouldn't they?
All there is to it. Got an email this week referencing how they're tightening down security in case people, what is it called, SIM swapping, or where you're trying to port somebody's phone number to your device. So if you have, I guess, a Coinbase account was their big example, they're automatically turning off that ability, the multi-device ability, so that even if somebody did get your phone number, they can't get your Authy account information unless you go in there. Unless you go in there, you re-enable the multi-device support, get the Authy database or configuration down to your new device, and then they're highly encouraging you to go back and turn that off.
Interesting. Yeah.
I think they should make that a times thing, saying, I want to enable multi-device support for everybody, not just this one situation, but I want to enable it. And they say, okay, this is going to be enabled for whatever it is, an hour, 2 hours a day. And then they automatically turn it off, because that's something you could easily leave on accidentally. And if you're really concerned about security, that could be bad. So I thought that was interesting.
Now,
that is
there was another announcement at Apple's event, the HomePod.
Yeah.
So this is their competition with Echo and Google Home, and boy, is it awful.
Yeah. Well, that's what I said. They pulled up short of saying it was an assistant of any sort. They're marketing it more as a smart speaker,
right?
With the ability to expand. It's like, yeah, no. I think what you're saying is you guys didn't finish before you didn't get everything done that you were supposed to get before this event. So you did an MVP on it, and you're going to expand the capabilities in the future. But
so
yeah,
the Echo Dot right now is $50, and that's just plug it into a speaker you have. The Amazon Echo, the full size device, is $180 unless you get two, and then it's $150 for each. You guys know how much the HomePod is?
Wasn't it like 300 or something?
$350.
Wow.
$350. It's double the price, and it only supports the Apple Music Store. It does not support any Pandora, iHeartRadio, Audible, TuneIn, Spotify, none of that. It does not have third-party support at all. So all of the Alexa skills that you use to add support to your device don't exist on the HomePod.
But the speaker's supposed to be amazing.
Right. It's got seven tweeters and one 4-inch subwoofer. It is literally double the weight in speakers of the Amazon Echo. It weighs 5.5 pounds versus the Echo, which is 2.3 pounds. So it sounds great. It just can't do anything.
Yeah.
Underwhelmed.
And it's twice as much as the full-sized Amazon Echo. Totally ridiculous. It was so bad, in fact, that Stephen Colbert's intro to Monday's Tonight Show was a giant joke about how stupid the AirPod is. And about how people will buy it anyways because it's an Apple device.
They still have their fanboys. It's
they're
crazy.
trying to get rid of them. It seems like they're trying to get rid of their fanboys because I can't understand the decisions they're making with making things so ridiculously overpriced in a market where things are just coming down and down and down. AMD's Ryzen processor. I mean, we're not even going to get into it on this podcast about Intel's newest processor line, but holy shit, they have screwed up to the maximum level. To the point where there are features on the chip that you have to unlock with little USB keys. I mean, the AMD has got Intel running for the hills right now with their new processors, and then they've got a new one coming out, their 18-core Threadripper processor, which is just monstrous. They're dominating with the new technology side of things, and Intel is trying to sort of flex their muscle in the market and say people will pay whatever we tell them to pay because we're Intel. But one of the big tech reviewers out there did a 12-minute video walking down the street in Shenzhen talking about what has got to be the worst decisions ever by Intel this year. And the market's been really, really hit by what he said because he pointed out these massive flaws where motherboard manufacturers don't even want to support the newest version of Intel's CPU architecture. And there are motherboard companies who have dropped out of support altogether for this year's Intel release slate.
Okay, so that was Tom's hardware corner.
I love hardware.
How about we wrap this back into our development world? We're all PHP developers, right? We know who Rasmus is, correct?
Oh, of course.
How do you pronounce Rasmus's last name?
Lerdorf.
Lerdorf. Okay. He tweeted out something I thought was really cool. So as a PHP developer for years, I've always been so interested in PHP internals and how to actually code PHP, code the core of PHP. And I know there have been some pretty prominent people in the PHP community who have made significant contributions to PHP core. Sammy K's one. What's her name, John? You spoke with her at PHP Tech. She worked at Facebook. What was her name?
Trying to remember who you're talking about.
She worked at Facebook. I think she's at like Etsy now.
Oh, Samantha.
Samantha. Yeah. I know she's done stuff with. She's big on the internals. So I've always been fascinated with that. And Rasmus posted an awesome link in his Twitter feed. I guess there's somebody had put together a PHP internals book, which is an online book of how things are how the practices of PHP internals. Does that make sense? That makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So I've been clicking through this, and it really kind of gets me like, I'm like, oh man, I really want to be able to contribute to internals. I don't know.
Makes your pants tight a little.
So I thought that was good.
We'll have down to cut that from the show.
We'll have that linked in the show notes. PHP internals.
And it's nice to see him give a shout out here to IRC Maxwell, friend of the show.
Who did?
The tweet.
What?
The work here was done by Julian Pauly, IRC Maxwell, and Nikita PPV.
You and your friends of the show. What the hell? I'm trying to figure out how he's a friend of the show. It's like, has he ever tweeted to us? Have we had any sort of interaction with this guy?
I think I insulted him once.
Oh,
it's the PHP Ugly Outreach Program.
He's one of the first people that John introduced me to. John and I, when we first were getting to know each other, John took me to a hotel up in LA. And it was a PHP.
They have to call them hotels now. They can't call them bathhouses anymore.
It was a PHP Tech. What was that? It was something from PHP Tech, right? It wasn't a conference. It was like a 1-day training or something.
Oh yeah.
You remember that?
I forget what that was. Yeah.
And I remember it like it was yesterday. We walk in, and IRC Maxwell is over having, like, he's eating some breakfast or something, and John's like, holy crap, there's IRC Maxwell right there. That guy right there is IRC Maxwell. I'm like, okay. He just looks like a dork eating food to me. I don't know. But yeah, that was the first kind of PHP community person outside of San Diego that I kind of what was introduced to. I mean, I wasn't actually introduced to him. He was eating, and John didn't want to walk over there. But yeah, do you remember that day, John?
I don't remember him being there, but
yeah,
like I'm remembering that little room we were in, the little conference thing we were doing. But
the lights were dim. There was
heart-shaped hot tub.
Yeah. Yes, I remember. I remember there was one of the new sports Teslas parked out front. Somebody had a Tesla there. Oh man, I remember that. I remember that so vividly. That's a weird thing to remember. You were wearing the silk blouse, John, where your manly chest would just kind of look. I barely see it. It was, man.
Well, Rasmus, our dear leader, also tweeted out about PHP 7.2.
Way to move the show along, Thomas.
Just trying to get away from discussions on chest hair.
Yes, Alpha.
Alpha 7.2. Do you guys know what's new in 7.2?
I do not.
Then you don't listen to the show?
No, I don't. I really don't pay attention most of the time.
Okay,
but
so
no, don't enlighten me or anything, Thomas. Please take your time. Dead air is always good.
We discussed an article a good number of months back that was entitled PHP 7.2, the first programming language to add modern cryptography to its standard library.
Oh, I do remember that conversation, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the big inclusion here is libsodium, which is the modern, quote-unquote, modern cryptography library, and a lot of changes with removal of bad cryptography stuff.
So that seems like that's going to be a pretty big backwards change break there. Is that going to be... that seems to be like it's going to be fairly impactful.
What you'll be able to do...
They got rid of mcrypt, right?
They got rid of what?
Mcrypt, right?
So mcrypt, they got rid of it in the sense that they moved it to pair, which is where things go to die. So
I say, is pair still a thing, huh?
Yeah, so they buried it. It's not dead. You can still dig it back up and put it back in, but they let you know that you're at least raiding a graveyard when you try to do that. So besides that,
my parent packages I have installed in a application right now.
What's that?
4.3.
So I'm not gonna tell you my pair packages I have installed in a client's application right now.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I've used Pair.
But remember, it's where things go to die. So I ended up taking the big one they use is DB data objects. I pulled it out and actually put it into the into the repo so that I can make changes to it.
I think that's the same one I used.
DB data objects?
Yeah.
They use now? No.
No, I used a long time ago. The last time I used Pair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's going to be a bunch of BC breaks. My favorite BC break is the use of the resource term iteratable. Iteratable has been,
ever used that.
If a thing can be iterated, it's iteratable, and that got thankfully renamed to iterable, which because if you look at iteratable spelled out, you go, wait, no, did they misspell it? No, that's correct.
That's not a word.
That's just made up. That's So yeah, there's going to be a good amount of backward compatibility breaking. I think when you start seeing frameworks moving forward into modern cryptography and 7.2 compatibility, because remember, we're still on this crazy timeline of like you have a year to use this product and then it's outdated. So we're going to see more and more, hopefully, good cryptography come out of it. But besides that, not a whole lot that I saw going through the changelog. Lots of bug fixes.
I thought dot releases weren't supposed to have backwards breaks like that. I thought that was a fair. I mean, do we not consider that a fairly significant change?
I think because you can still port mcrypt in from Pair, it's not considered a major BC break, and because it's such a security issue to use mcrypt at this point, that breaking backward compatibility is actually considered favorable.
Okay.
And then, security fixes and all that jazz.
All right, so you guys know I'm an open source dude, right? I live my life in the open source. Right? I mean, everything I do is kind of open source. No, I'm an open source guy, though.
It's spaghetti code, but it is open source.
And if you remember a few shows back, I don't know, John, I don't know if you were on or not. I told you about my fascination with open source project that was around farming and how they were open sourcing how to build tractors and how to build log cutters and everything about farming, about creating a farm. They were doing in an open source manner, which I thought was really cool. Well, this kind of falls in that same category, and it's funny because I just watched this news story about a year ago on seeds. So you don't think much about it, but the seed industry, like plants and like food that's produced from seeds,
well, plants that you covered it.
A huge market. Like the genetics of that make up a seed are copyrighted by these massive corporations, and for farmers to be able to plant a certain seed to grow a certain crop, they have to pay this royalty, and it's like something you as a city person you would have never thought of it. And I remember watching this story. I'm like, I didn't know this whole industry existed. It was fascinating to me. Well, it turns out it was enough of it's enough of an issue where there's now in Germany they started this nonprofit organization that's creating open source seeds. I think they're applying the open source nature to plant seeds.
Nature?
It's like fantastic.
That's crazy.
I'm a big fan, but they're in for a fight. I mean, one of the issues here with the seed industry is that the seed industry is also the pesticide industry.
Mm-hmm.
And so the big moneymakers are the seeds that are resilient to the pesticides that they sell, and they sell them as a combo. And
so the bigger story here is Eric put a story on here full of sunshine, so happy. Thomas comes and craps right all over it. Doom and gloom.
Practice doom and gloom. It's the last thing I do.
Hey,
what you don't know, Eric, is the guys behind the seed industry are who assassinated Kennedy.
When I worked for the Navy, you know what they called me?
Wait, it terrifies me to hear that you worked for the Navy.
I did.
Okay, what did they call you?
They called me Chicken Little.
Because the sky was always falling.
Because the sky was always falling.
I can't imagine why. Jeez, it can be perfect.
Hey, you know what? If you have a tech support employee who treats a broken mouse pad as if it were the sky is falling, that's a good employee in my book. And yes, I said broken mouse pad because I've had that complaint in the Navy.
So were you in the Navy or do you work for the Navy?
I worked for the NMCI project.
So you were
and
never,
I know
you
knew that
in
one.
The Navy.
No. But I got my clearance, and I worked on secret level stuff, and that was where I learned to splice fiber and stuff like that.
Nice. Is that your dog? Who's got the dog barking?
Not it.
Okay.
It's my neighbor's dog, technically.
Why do you have to say technically? Just say, no, it's my neighbor's dog. You don't have to say technically.
Well, if it's in his house, he has to say technically.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you have it locked up in your basement, then yeah, maybe say technically.
It's my stupid neighbor who doesn't know how to pay up.
I'm sorry I asked.
Remind me, I have to tell you a neighbor horror story after the podcast is over.
Our listeners hate it when you do that. You do it all the time.
I cut it out,
dude. I got this great story.
All right. I'll tell you it right now. Do you want to hear it right now? Then.
No.
Well, we're about done. So this is it. Wrap it up. Let's hear it.
So, like 1:00 at night, my neighbor turns on Drake. Really loud, R&B, rap, whatever, really loud, like amazingly loud. And
loud.
I tell my wife, I'm like, that's our neighbor again. And my wife says, our neighbor's an old woman. It's not her. We let it go for a while, and then I listen out the windows, and I go outside and listen. I'm like, yeah, that's our neighbor. That's the old lady next door. So I go, we let it go for a while, and finally it's just too loud, and it's the same single song repeatedly. And I'm like,
was your neighbor dead? Did you find your neighbor dead next door?
And you took her dog and put it in your basement?
Finally, I go next door, 1 a.m.
Is your dead neighbor in your basement?
And I knock on the door, and yeah, a nice old lady answers the door. And I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. It's the music is disturbing my kids, and it's too loud for this time of day. And she goes, oh my God, I'm so sorry. My friend just committed suicide, and this was our song. And I never meant to disturb anybody else, and starts weeping. And I'm standing there, and I'm like, Well, shit.
I should have put pants on before I came over.
I really shouldn't. And so now I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. You make as much noise as you want. And she's like, no, I'll close the window. And she's just crying. And I'm like, no, I totally understand. I'm just going to go back to my house now. And everything's fine.
I'm just going to go back to my house and kill myself. I'm sorry. No, wait, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No. I was like, and I went back to my house and my wife was like, so how'd it go? And I was like, you're going next time. I'm not doing that again. It turned on its heels.
I told her she could play it as loud as she wants.
Yeah. She said she'd close her windows. That's
then she closed the door. She closed the door and said, "Sucker."
Threw a big blunt in her mouth, like, don't believe anything.
Not on my street, Cali boy.
All right. Well, that sounds like just of a place to end the show as any. I don't know how many people.
There's my doom and gloom for the week.
See, we have Thomas with his doom and gloom. I'm sure I managed to offend 2 or 3 ethnic groups or genders or somethings, and John is just his normal beautiful self. So
yeah, John's just itching to get out the door like a dog that has to pee.
He's like, I gotta stop hanging out with these guys.
We done? We're done? We're done? We're done?
For real.
All right. I'm Eric Van Johnson.
I'm Tom Rideout.
I'm John Congdon. Keep it ugly.
Keep it ugly.
Holy crap! We almost did that perfectly.
I didn't know we had a point.
What do you mean almost? That was absolutely perfect.
Oh, I couldn't tell with the delays, so it sounded pretty perfect, but all right,
I can't believe we're going to end on that story.
I felt like